Hi, welcome to Lesson 1A, which I call the LTR framework. In this lesson, you will learn how to behave during your actual interview using the LTR framework and how to use the 3-second rule to make your answers more thought out. This is the LTR framework. Now, you may think that it's such a no-brainer, but really, a lot of people don't do this. So first, you have to listen. That's letter L. And then think, letter T. And respond for the letter R. So what this means is that the LTR framework is what you can follow during the actual interview. But the purpose of this is really for you to have a less to no stress experience and understand that it is okay to think about your answer for a few seconds. So let's start with the first one, which is listen. For this part, okay, focus on the question alone and not on anything else. A lot of people actually think ahead. That is why they're not able to answer the question properly because they're already thinking of how they'll answer the question. So don't think of what the follow-up question may be. Not yet, at least. Just focus on getting the initial question right first. Usually, when you panic, okay, that is when you cannot think properly. And panic is usually caused by overthinking and thinking ahead. So what happens is that even if you haven't answered the first question yet, you're already thinking of how to answer the next one, which is not a good way to go about answering your interview questions. So what you can do instead is to take it one question at a time, because you'll really just get to the finish line with less stress and anxiety that way. And the simplest thing you can do to ensure success or to make sure that you're answering the question correctly. So always listen first with no preconceived notions or no judgments. And what I mean by that is when you listen, you don't think that, okay, this question is going to be about my experience. This question is going to be about my previous employment. Oh my goodness, what am I going to do if the interviewer will ask why I went on AWOL or things like that. So don't think of those things yet. Just listen first. Okay? Now, let's move on to letter T. T is for think. Newsflash, you don't have to answer in a heartbeat. So once the interviewer asks you a question, you actually can take your time to answer, okay? You need a bit of time to breathe and think. So don't be afraid of quick silence, because more often than not, the silence really only feels longer on your end. And your interviewer will also give you a chance to think, because that's just how it goes when you're answering questions. You have to think about it. And this is the time to follow the 3-second rule. So what is the 3-second rule? It is when you pause for 3 seconds before answering. And what are you going to do with those 3 seconds? You take this time to gather your thoughts and think of an answer. But obviously, you won't be able to formulate a complete answer in just 3 seconds. But it does help you put yourself together. And 3 seconds might feel super quick, but taking this time to think is so much better than jumping into an answer that you're not sure of or rushing to an answer that you haven't really thought about. This is the reason that if you're watching pageants, if you're a Filipino, for sure, a lot of you are a fan of pageants. You know that when the host asks the question during the Q&A portion, the candidate would pause first, right? Do you notice that they actually paused first? And that is because they're taking the time to put themselves together before they answer the actual question. Except if you're Catriona Gray, and I think she's the only person who doesn't need 3 seconds before answering because it's like super instant for her. But anyway, that's basically the idea. So what happens if you don't actually think first? Rushing to answer will only result in saying something that you did not intend to say or tripping over your words a lot. I have noticed this so many times, even in myself. Like when I'm asked a question and then I blurt out the answer right away, the result is that I will tell the person, oh no, wait. What do you mean? So it is better if you actually clarify first than taking back your answer because you did not get the question the first time. So thinking about your answer for a few seconds helps you come up with a more organized and well thought out answer. But you do need to be mindful here because you don't want to stall and take too long to think, because that's also not a good sign. So just 3 seconds or maybe 3 seconds and a half to think about your answer. Again, you cannot formulate the entire answer in 3 seconds, but at least think of the starting point of your answer. All right? Now, once we're done with listening and thinking, that's when we respond. We simply respond with a direct answer and support it with your main points. So more on this when we're already going to discuss the formula. But you may encounter a situation where the question is difficult or complicated and you want to make sure you got it right or you understood it correctly. It is actually fine to paraphrase and ask again. This is one way for you to clarify the question. And you can identify what you find confusing. Is it a term, a jargon, a phrase, or is it the entire question? And from there, you can politely ask your interviewer. So you can say something like, just to clarify, were you specifically asking about how I helped a customer as a voice call representative? Or you can say, I just want to know that I understood the question correctly, or I just want to make sure I understood the question correctly. Did you mean a situation in my previous job or my life in general? And in this case, it is so much better to admit that the question is unclear to you rather than invent something that does not make sense because you're embarrassed to ask. But you're not really, sorry, I don't understand the question, or sorry, that is so unclear to me. You don't like flat out tell that to your interviewer, but instead you clarify or paraphrase. That's already a sign that you want the interviewer to rephrase the question. So be mindful and do not default to this paraphrasing strategy just because you want to buy time to answer the question. It's also not appropriate if you keep asking for clarification or to paraphrase the question every single time. If you keep asking for clarification in every single question, then that's already a red flag that you might have a serious comprehension issue. So from time to time, your interviewer may also ask you a unique or interesting question that you don't know how to answer or you are unsure of. This is different in a sense that you know and you understand the question completely. It's just that it's unique and you're not really sure how to answer it. You're not really sure how to attack that question. So in this case, what you can do, your strategy is to turn the table around first, validate your interviewer's interviewing skills, meaning you let the interviewer know that that's actually a good question. So you can say something like, that's really an interesting question, or that's a great question. It justifies your 3-second rule because then it's obvious that you need some time to think. So you can then follow up with, let me think about that question. So you can say something like, that's really an interesting question. Let me think about that. And then proceed with your 3-second time to think before you respond with the actual answer. Then again, use this only when you genuinely think that the question is interesting or difficult to answer. Don't use it in every question, obviously, because in every question you keep saying, that's a good question, that's an interesting question, let me think about that. That's going to be super annoying. All right, so far we've talked about listen, think, and respond, as well as the 3-second rule of answering questions. Up next will be Lesson 1B, which is the STAR framework that I did not invent, but I'm going to discuss for answering behavioral and situational interview questions. So see you on the next lesson.